Hi guys, I am Anderson, welcome back. Today bring you the sci-fi movie Splice. Clive and Aisha, a pair of biologists specializing in genetic recombination, have used a new genetic crossover technology to create a new life form, while a female and a male test subject produced proteins that could produce veterinary medicine. Aisha also wanted to go a step further and apply the technology directly to humans so they could solve the various genetic diseases that plague them. But the board of directors denied Aisha's request to conduct human genetic experiments and decided to suspend the experiments until the results of the current phase were profitable. Due to the patent rights, the couple could not go to other research institutes to start over, so they decided to conduct the experiment secretly. In the couple's tireless efforts, human and animal hybrid genes were successfully created by them. Originally, Clive only wanted to freeze the results of the experiment, but he was eventually convinced by Aisha to start the fertilization process in an artificial womb. As the fertilized egg grows, Clive once again raises the idea of wanting a child, but due to the psychological shadow of childhood, Aisha never responded to his proposal. When they disagree on this, Clive suddenly received an alert from the breeding room. The two then returned to the lab overnight and discovered that the embryos, which were months away from maturity, had suddenly gone into labor. Due to the excessive pressure inside the artificial womb, the overdeveloped embryo was at imminent risk of suffocation, so Aisha had to put on gloves and operate manually. But what she did not expect was that he had just put her hand into the artificial amniotic fluid and was stabbed by the monster inside the womb. The side of Clive saw the situation, then quickly cracked the glass cover. With a scalpel cut open the artificial womb. In the astonished eyes of the two, a small monster with a wagging tail fell out. Clive then used a clear plastic box to hold it in place and detoxify the convulsing Aisha, after the two put the little monster into the nursery box. But in Clive's opinion, this accidentally born creature is a scientific error, so he woke up the next day and insisted on killing the test subject. But to the surprise of the two men, the dead tissue inside the incubator was just a shell. Inside, the little monster has long escaped. Seeing his wife trying to get close to the little monster, Clive then forced Aisha out of the lab. But Aisha then used ether to anesthetize the test subject in the room and launched a study of the strange creature. After analyzing the data, the two found that the new species had an extremely fast metabolism and that it would come to the end of its life in a very short time. Aisha then proposed to observe her entire life cycle and used it to convince her husband to keep the little creature with a poisonous spike on its tail. Originally, the couple had been raising the little monster with grain, but the little monster kept resisting not to eat. It was not until it accidentally knocked off the sugar beans that Aisha loves to eat that the two discovered that the little monster actually liked the food with high sugar content, and within a month, the little monster quickly evolved and grew arms. Aisha also became more and more into the feelings. She not only began to educate the growing female monster, but also named her Helen. But Clive could not help but have a big fight with his wife after seeing Aisha's approach. At this time, Clive's brother happened to pass by and encountered hanging upside down in the ceiling of the Helen. Although Aisha immediately ordered Helen to avoid, but Clive's brother was still frightened by this strange creature to panic, and because Helen had a high fever under fear, the couple used physical methods to cool down Helen, but the two who put it into the water soon found that Helen's body had evolved amphibian lungs. And after Helen returned to normal, Aisha set up a warm and lovely room for her, and put Helen, whose body has become an adult, to sleep every night. Due to the recent period of too much work, the couple did not let themselves go, so thinking that Helen had fallen asleep, the two of them just make love on the sofa. But this scene was suddenly woken up. Helen spied. The next day, at the urging of the company, the couple began to show the results of the experiment to the investors. But due to recent negligence, the female test subject turned out to be a male and clashed with another male test subject on the spot, and with the breakage of the display case, the presentation turned into a disaster. The couple also wanted to restart the experiment, but the company ordered them to synthesize the protein that could produce veterinary medicine as soon as possible because of funding problems, or else they would shut down the lab completely. And since Clive's brother has also put a lot of effort into the experiment, the angry one then sternly warned his brother and sister-in-law and suggested that they move the gradually growing Helen. And during the brothers' argument, Aisha brought up the farm left by her mother before she died, and the two then moved Helen in a box. But the dark farmhouse and the scary trees were too much for Helen to handle, so she broke away from Elsa's embrace and fled into the woods. And when the couple found Helen, she, who had been vegetarian, was actually gnawing on a hair. After putting Helen in place, Aisha then criticized Helen like an authoritarian mother. And since the couple needed to go back to the lab to work during the day, They then locked Helen in the farmhouse. Helen was inadvertently found Aisha's treasure chest, and saw inside the mother-daughter photos together as well as some beautiful toys. She looked at herself in the mirror, but suddenly felt inferior because of her strange appearance, so she picked up a wild cat and began to relieve herself of her loneliness. That night, with the couple's return, the reluctant dinner of Helen frantically expressed her dissatisfaction. Hearing this, Aisha barked orders at her like an animal, and at Aisha's roar, the unbearable Helen rushed out the skylight. The couple saw this and rushed up the ladder to the roof. Helen fell from the roof, but she derived a pair of wings in a desperate situation. Seeing that Helen was about to officially fly away, Clive used an emotional strategy to retain Helen. Thinking she was loved, Helen immediately put away her wings and flung herself into Clive's arms, and in order to prevent Helen from escaping again, Aisha could only let Clive go to work alone in the lab, while she herself painted a delicate makeup for Helen. Only after the makeup, she found the sketch Helen drew just for Clive and saw the kitten Helen kept. In order to keep Helen from being infected, Aisha forcibly takes the kitten away despite her resistance. After returning from work, Clive saw that Aisha had fallen asleep and came to the farmhouse, only to find Helen, who was in tears. In order to calm Helen's emotions, Clive played a song suitable for dancing, and under his drive, Helen gradually became happy. But in the dance with Helen, Clive saw the figure of Aisha from her body. So Clive immediately returned to the house, questioned the waking Aisha, and learned that Helen's body does have Aisha's genes. After Clive left, Aisha, who was left alone, could only hold the kitten to find Helen, but at this point she was not only a despotic mother in the eyes of Helen, but also her love rival. Helen then killed the kitten and pounced on Aisha, but just as she got the key and was about to leave, Aisha suddenly got up and knocked her out with a stick and cut off the poisonous stinger on her tail, which was just seen by Clive, who came back from work. At this point Aisha became a cold experimenter. She took the still active cell tissue, and then went to the laboratory, and seeing that he could not stop his wife, Clive could only go up and untie Helen. Aisha immediately went to the laboratory. She succeeded in synthesizing the protein with the help of the active ingredient, and informed the person in charge of the matter, Bill. The next day, Clive woke up and went to the barn to look for his wife, but ended up meeting with the pitiful Helen, who looked similar to his wife and made him lose his mind. In the process of letting go of himself, the poisonous spikes on the tail of Helen actually grew out. But then the returning Aisha suddenly appeared, and the couple had a big fight over it. But after calming down, the two decided to end the experiment. They then rushed to the barn, only to find that Helen was already dying, and not long after, the test subject came to the end of life. The couple buried the dead Helen overnight, but just as they were about to leave, the man in charge, Bill, arrived at the farm with Clive's brother. It turns out that according to the protein synthesized by Aisha, Bill found the human gene in it and learned of the existence of Helen after pursuing Clive's brother. But just as he questioned the whereabouts of Helen, he was captured and killed by an unknown creature. The couple then discovered that the dead Helen had not only reanimated, but also turned into a male state. Then Helen killed Clive's brother and dragged Clive, who did not want to leave, into the water. Aisha pulled her lover up, but at this time, Helen has a strong desire to reproduce. He then jumped on Aisha and forced sex with Aisha. Although the arrival of Clive with a wooden stick stabbed Helen, but Helen will not only pull out the wooden stick, but also quickly pounced on the overwhelmed Clive. Aisha, who had succeeded in her sneak attack, wanted to kill Helen, but she suddenly hesitated, and at this very moment, Helen directly injected the venom into the heart of Clive, seeing her lover fall to the ground and die. Aside of Aisha, this is desperate to use the stone smashed Helen. As a result of the unusual genetic secrets in Helen's body, the board representative found Aisha, who was already pregnant. Aisha sold the offspring belonging to Helen to the company at a high price and prepared to continue to complete her human genetic experiments. That's it for today. We'll see you next time.